you down the call. Anna left some thoughts, async. Mainly it's around research timing. When are we going to test navigation concepts? Based on some of the feedback Anna had, it sounds like we're close and should be ready to start setting that up in Qualtrics. That could happen as early as the beginning of next week. Hopefully we've launched the study by the end of next week. As far as I know from like the design side, I think those static mockups of like the project overview page are just the right balance of detail and fidelity that we can at least run for that first test. Anna keeps saying prototype, but I think we've established like it's just going to be a singular screen. At least with the tasks that are there today, I don't see any reason we would have to redirect them to a different page for some reason, unless Anna comes back and is like, no, we really want to drop them into this part of the experience to evaluate this task. But I think we've been trying to find a good balance where we can just use the same view, because I'm most interested in knowing like just from a single page, like where would they go? I don't want to like shortcut them to a destination just to see like, oh, how did you then hit the new button? Like, no, not exactly like that. So do anybody else have like a question or thought around that? Otherwise we can just go to the next point.
So high level, nothing has really changed, right? Since I like kicked off yesterday or sent that update, we're still on track. There's 6 designs total.
Yeah.
Okay. And as soon as we know kind of if it's going to go to 15.4 or if it stays within 15.3, like that's kind of a data point for me, but it seems good. Just
yeah. Yep, exactly. We've got those 6 ideas. 3 of them kind of test a structure that looks similar to what we have today, but reswizzling some elements. We've got a couple designs that test an all vertical navigation, and then one extra one that is more of a renewed concept. So we'll test all those different ideas. And yeah, it looks like as long as things go smoothly in Qualtrics, obviously we might launch a pilot study to just make sure we can catch any hiccups before we do a broader launch of it. And if we do run into those hiccups, I think that's what would push it. But otherwise, I think we're getting there. The last biggest question is like the task 3. I'm cool with the first 2. It's like establishing where they're at, trying to switch over to a group view, and then we're just really trying to find a task that's agnostic of persona, but it's not like feature specific per se, but it helps evaluate like picking up where you left off, so just helping users in their workflow. So it's a weird one to try and hit all of the right
that's hard
dimensions. Yeah, so I've been helping brainstorm some ideas, and I'll just go with whatever Anna recommends.
It was commenting, right? Just replying to a comment initially.
That's what we still have. We haven't pivoted away from it yet. I just have thrown a couple ideas at the wall. Ashley responded and said like, some of these are fine, but just keep in mind like they may be more persona specific, like picking up an MR pipeline or something is maybe more engineer focused, or like finding an issue maybe is more product manager focused or something. So we're just still trying to find something more generic. Anyhow.
Yeah, I think everyone has to have the repo and like MRs to use GitLab. So I guess some people do turn them off. They could only use commits, right? Commit directly. But
yeah,
that does seem like it would hit all the use cases. Even PMs have to reply on MR sometimes.
Yeah. I'm curious to just know what your research wants us to run with, and we'll just go with that.
Cool.
So let's see what Anna has to say.
Yeah, and let's do because we'll do the bi-weekly update. So like in 2 weeks, we can just kind of check in and see where we're at and what happened over the next half of a milestone.
Yeah, for sure.
That's super exciting to hear. All right, so this next one, I had a sync session with Mike yesterday. He's working on that spike to get our navigation completely instrumented. I'm going to link here to a spreadsheet that we're kind of just riffing on here as well. And this isn't a great presentation, but I'm going to quickly talk you through kind of where we're at or what we were thinking through and how it comes over to design. So right now, every single nav item it's the Wild West. They're named all different things. They're event names. And you can't just do a query that would pull in like all events that have nav underscore click or something on them, because they're just everywhere. It's been multiple teams. There hasn't been major oversight. So I think this is a big opportunity to just clean it up and get it to a point where it makes sense. And I want it to align with what we call these things in the designs as well. So you could see here, we were thinking through event names, doing something such as this, where they're always concatenated with the term, and these terms can change, but nav item. And then the specific link itself, such as clicking on the milestones or that issue indicator on the top bar or issue list, this would always be the object name, such as issue, and then the event. So in this case, it's a list, right? Or just maybe the detail page. So that kind of lets us string these and make a big long name that makes sense, and it's a consistent way. The other goal with this is, so in Austin, you had a design where the issue indicator, like the counter, like right now it's up in the top right in the top bar. What if that moves to the left bar? So using the event property, we should be able to also say that currently it's in the nav underscore top, right? But at some point, we don't want to change the event name of issue indicator, but if we move it into the left bar, if we moved it to the footer, to the right bar, wherever it goes, that the event property that says where it is decoupled from the unique identifier for that link. Does that make sense overall? It's a unique little thing that gets clicked, has consistent name, and it could just go anywhere. So that's kind of where we're at. The other cool thing is this, is if we do, you could see here, I have top nav, nav top, and then like nav top 2, v2 could be something. Let's say we get into A/B testing, we could have this issue indicator rendering in tests and be able to check the usage of it between the two navs, one called nav top and the other one called nav top 2. So this is going to scale to let us try things, sort of compare one or the other. So where this gets interesting though is what we call the things. And we're using, like I'm using nav item was the least, or I guess the most generic thing that I was thinking through. Link would be another term, but we kind of get into this point where like, is that what we want to call them for sure? Like, is this thing at this top, this type that we call it internally, type, is it type nav? And is this, and this would be a type nav project left. And then is this a type nav item? Does that make sense with our design system? Does it make sense to scale? Will this make sense when these items render on or within dashboards in the future or in other places? What do we call some of these weird clicks, like the hamburger? Because that's another thing. When you click that hamburger, it's technically a click. It opens something, nothing happens. So it's kind of like a toggle action. So these are some of the questions that we're coming into. And I wanted to just kind of get your high level takes on those overall in terms of how they might scale.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges is naming things and being consistent is hard. So one thing I've linked to here is a reference to our documentation around how these things are supposed to be referred to.
Mm-hmm.
We know whether we follow that or not is not true. So I'll use the thing we sometimes call the global header. It is called the top bar in our doc. In Figma, it's the header component. And then you look at the class in our code, it's the nav bar.
Okay, so those have names. Those are good. Oh, I didn't realize we called it top. Oh, I've always bar. Okay, I've been saying top nav. I'll change that.
It's but also, are you wrong? Like we call it a
well,
header
yeah.
in Figma.
Well, that's the thing.
We call it the
So these
nav
are their
bar in our
names.
code. So which is the right thing? I don't know.
These are their names. So these, I think the design system maps to their names. Their type is what we have to rely on because they're all of type nav, right? Or whatever we call that thing, the group. So the type is nav, and we've got 3 flavors: top, left, right. And then the same for nav items. The type is a nav item. We've got flavors: link, toggle, hamburger, at the most generic level, what is that thing? I think that gives us the most flexibility, because then we could have infinite versions or types of some of these things like top bar, and just still all be able to refer to them as a type nav, at least internally and in our naming. So yeah, I think those, I say top nav. I think our code says top nav, but would the best next step on that too to be aligned with Jeremy and just see, hey, we've got these names, now let's clarify the type, the slightly more generic word.
Yeah, perhaps it's like a handshake agreement between like tech writing, design, and engineering and product to be like, can we use the same words to describe the same things? My guess is there's probably gonna have to be perhaps some level of differentiation. Like I think specifically in the code base, there might have to be more specificity just to better differentiate things that we can refer to being more generalized. Like I think we can say the word top bar and know what it means, but then when you're writing the identifier in the front end, it might have to be more specific than just saying top bar. Like it might have to be like top bar nav, I don't know, so on, so forth, whatever B2. Syntax it might be, right? So I would say I'm not like tied to any one specific thing, but as long as we can just like communicate what is what. So if the docs are calling it the top bar and I'm referring to it as the header from Figma, as long as we all understand what that means, then we're fine.
Yeah.
But we probably could get better over time by choosing a specific word to describe one thing at a time.
Yeah. And I think, I'll propose like nav as the group of things and nav item as something inside it. But we got to also talk through concepts such as like when we get to dashboards, can a nav be in a dashboard? There's questions like that. The links within a dashboard, are those considered nav?
Right? Like, because, okay, this is where it gets kind of confusing. I was just in a different issue conversation about the tab component and the path component. Tabs are identified as a nav element in our code base, but that's not necessarily wrong. That's just like how it is defined in terms of how like our DOM, I guess, reads properties. So I don't think it's wrong to call it a nav element, but like that might get confusing when we say like, can nav live on the dashboard? Well, technically, like apps can live there. They're considered a nav element to a browser, but they're not maybe what people are thinking of when you're thinking, oh, you mean the left sidebar. That one we're at least kind of consistent on. The left sidebar seems to be more consistent.
Yeah, I think we're trying to mark our territory, our real estate. So then the events that the front end set up are going to be the ones we query for the official nav, and we'll leave tabs differently, the ones that are internal, so that those can be tracked separate. What happened with our query, why we were at 150 million clicks, is what you just said. Accidentally, every tab click on merge request was coming into our main query. When they found that error, our numbers dropped down to like 40 million per month. So it's like a big concern. We really need to nail the nomenclature of these so that we can scope the queries effectively to leave out traffic from certain parts we don't want. However, if we build a custom nav, if we build our landing page, if our team takes that over and there's links all in our navigation, all in the dashboards or on panels, those we want to track against our MAU as a team. And so we have to just be able to still pull those through into events and differentiate them. So we would consider them a part of our clickable real estate.
Okay, well, maybe the place to start would be if we need to add more specificity to the docs specifically, because that's like where we have the documentation for if someone contributes a navigation thing that they would read from, hopefully.
Yes.
We specify like, this is how you should identify a nav element in the left sidebar, so they can have that. And
Okay.
to me, it makes sense as a single source of truth.
Yeah, I agree. And then that can help inform kind of our tracking, which is the next step, because we want the tracking to support that.
Right. Tracking.
Yeah. Are there any other in D? Are there any other gotchas or interesting things you guys can think? I just said guys, sorry. You all can think of around click, hover, toggle, or drop downs that exist in Nav that you can think of off the top of your head? We don't track the hovers currently. When you go down left sidebar, those don't have any events on them at this point, but they do reveal. And there are some toggles in right sidebar, but we don't own that.
Yeah, it's like how do you even track like accidental clicks? Like the one thing I see all the time people get frustrated about in their verbatims is like, I hover over merge requests and I click on the tooltip and it doesn't go anywhere.
Yes.
How do you capture that as a metric? Not sure we really can.
No. Bounces,
So
I guess.
maybe, but it wouldn't
If
bounce
they
anywhere.
don't stay there for long. Like if they just see it and they're like, if anyone under a second on a page or going somewhere else.
I don't know if they'll give you the full picture, because it's just people getting frustrated because they've like created a learned pattern of I can hover over something, it opens a new menu, and I can click on an item in that menu. And then the parent items that have no subchildren, you can't, because it's just
Sure.
direct link. So it's almost like we have to be cool with the expectation of there's always submenus or there are no submenus, because we currently intermix them.
Make it consistent.
Yeah.
I guess we have a toggle or a reveal on the left sidebar, opening, closing. Is that the same as, would you call that the same event as clicking that hamburger that exposes something? Because they both don't go anywhere, but they change something on the screen.
I would probably consider them different. So you're saying like if someone hits the collapse sidebar button versus when a parent menu is collapsed, like issues, and then they click on it and it exposes sub menu.
It's like a toggle action.
It's both like a toggle action and like a redirect for that. Because if you're on a different parent item like merge requests and then you click on issues, it'll redirect you to the issues list and open the submenu. Whereas the collapsing the sidebar, where that might be interesting is better understanding when is it useful to users, perhaps. But
it's like an open close, but like it could happen anywhere. Same with menu, the hamburger menu to me, because you're revealing or you're hiding it. So I'm just like, can we call them a generic thing, which is toggle on and off, or and then say the specificity of its name would be like project left sidebar was where that toggle on and off happened.
Yeah,
I
would think of menu as something different than the collapsing.
From a UI perspective, though, you're clicking an element to have something show or hide.
Yes.
At the most base.
Yes. You're right. Yeah. Clicking on menu.
I know they have different intents or workflows to do them, but like in terms of how we would track the click, it would either be revealed or not. It's open or it's closed.
Right. I mean, so then that would be like the same case for merge requests in the top bar, right? Because you click on that to get drop down list.
Exactly. Which is kind of different from the other nav items that are links. So I'm just trying to get those nuances, like this piece right now is like exposing other information.
I see what you're saying.
It's different from navigating to somewhere.
Yeah. The thing that's the collapse sidebar portion, that one feels different just because it's exposing just the name of those links, because you can't see them when it's collapsed. So it almost like I can see why we would need to track it similarly in our metrics that we're collecting, but it does feel like a unique difference. So I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
have a good answer for you.
Yeah. The other thing is like MRs, like you said, is open closed. Issues is a link
Right.
currently. At
Right.
some point, they could get the same behavior, or who knows what happens with design, right? Like there could be an exposure that ends up happening. So the
Sure.
click, the name of that item has to be unique enough, like issue indicator, MR indicator. Then in the properties, we're saying this time it was like a toggle reveal, or it was like a direct link. So we don't have to mess with that unique identifier. And our nav could be as fluid as we want and not mess up our data.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah. I
so
mean,
that's kind of the nuance I want to get into, so that we make sure we think
yeah.
through every single part of what we call these things, so that we can have these conversations and we can class them accordingly across and look for
Yeah.
consistency.
Yeah. I guess my closing thought on that would be take your best guess. And if it's not right, that's okay. And we'll just have to change it as
Yeah.
we go. Like, I don't think there's going to be we know for sure it's exactly the right nomenclature for everything. We're categorizing everything perfectly. I think the data will end up kind of showing like, oh gosh, yeah, we had like too many merge requests and we had to look into that and then figured
Yeah.
out it's not actually all merge request clicks. It's something else, but the data is being skewed because we didn't think about this edge case.
Yeah. We're going to take our best bet, but we have to think it through really hard, because you can't change them later. The data, then every query of all time would have to say ands in the query. So we try to get it right the first time.
Yeah.
Nick, you've got the last one there, or two. Sorry, I took a lot of this agenda.
Oh, no, you're good. Mine's kind of related. So as far as tracking clicks, for the menu, from what I understand, we aren't doing any tracking. Is that correct?
There is, because we were talking through it. Actually, I was just looking at it with Snowplow. I'll verify that, but I believe there is. Are you asking because you want to check it to see if we can change it or get rid of it as a proposal?
The reason I'm wondering, and it's kind of specific to those items that were added from the more menu, such as like milestones, snippets, and all those. Because I feel like having data to back up any sort of change that we may make in terms of like moving those links out or requiring like extra navigation to get to those will help kind of justify those changes, rather than just making them more arbitrary, and people having like, there could be like users who push back, be like, now you've made it harder for me to get to milestones, and we can be like, well, like we only show like 2% of users are clicking on these links or something like.
Yeah.
So like having data to back up some of that stuff, I think would be helpful. And I just didn't know if we currently had any metrics on it or not.
So it doesn't look like anything is happening down here for what the actual click on the hamburger, but there is on the individual items themselves are coming through as structured events. So yeah, we wouldn't be able to check on that, but you can get them on these ones.
In the
these aren't
PI,
either.
the PI dashboard that we had set up, it looked like we had data on like projects and groups, like the links within those menus captured,
yeah, right here.
But we're missing it for some of the other ones. So I'm pretty sure I asked specifically, and they said we weren't tracking like milestones yet. So it might be true that now it's being captured, but at the time when I checked, it wasn't being captured.
Everything runs everything looks like except activity. No, I think that a lot of them are there except the hamburger itself.
Okay.
But yeah, what do you need for what you're working on?
Yeah, it wasn't necessarily like I needed the specific metrics. I just wanted it. It'd be good to have that information to help justify decisions that we do make. So if we do get pushback on certain things, like moving like a lot of those more items that were added in out, or making it maybe one more click to get to those items, we have more justification for doing that because people weren't really utilizing them today. So that's
comparing that to like the total nav click traffic and just kind of seeing like if it's peanuts in comparison, and then it's less risk. Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Maybe Austin, you could help. Oh, they may have redone all of our navigation navs. We'll have to see. But yeah, I'll see if all of the ones that were by click by item were removed from our graph last week
Yeah, I don't see them anymore.
because they had to redo those queries that were messed up. So yeah, we'll have to dive in and maybe when maybe I can ask Carolyn or Neil to like go in and remake one of them. I need to get good at that SQL too. Like I have to dive in and I should be able to pull some of them once I get a good model of how to write the big query. But
Cool.
okay, let's
And
put that on the radar.
yeah, it
Yeah.
wasn't something I needed like right now. It's just something I think would be helpful for kind of justifying decisions that we make. And then the last thing I have on here is I'd like to share out some of the designs that I've been working on and get feedback from you all. And I was curious if you guys have if you all have a preference for how we do that. Would you prefer a synchronous meeting that I set up, or I could do like a Loom and we could handle it more asynchronously? Is there any preference there?
I'm good with any of those. Whatever you prefer.
Okay.
I've got time this week to sync too if you want to set it up this week.
Yeah, I mean,
Or
I
even
do
now.
prefer synchronous sessions if possible. So maybe I'll try and set something up. I've been doing like weekly meetings with Austin already, so I've gotten a good amount of feedback from him.
Nice.
And I also have a review session with Jeremy later today because I wanted to review some stuff with him as well. But yeah, like you and Tori, I'd love to get your thoughts as well. So
Okay.
I'll go ahead and try and set up a sync with you all. And
Yeah.
if we
Tomorrow
need to
Tori's
use-
back too. So if you
Okay.
can get us both on together, that's good. Or if you want to just if I'm blocking anything, feel free to schedule whenever.
Okay.
I love looking at designs.
Yeah. Sounds good. I'll plan to set something up async or synchronously then.
Cool. Nice. This is exciting. I can't wait to see those come together too. Search and whatever hamburger ends up being, or whatever we end up calling them. That's going to be massive improvement.
Yeah, and I met with Anna, was it yesterday? Yeah, yesterday, and discussed kind of her participation and ability to help out with the testing. So I'm starting work on the discussion guide and working through the task with her, and she's going to have time to kind of help me with that as well. So
Nice.
the plan is to get these designs finalized here pretty soon, within the next few days, up to maybe a week, to get like the prototypes ready. And then in the meantime, I'm working on the discussion guide and figuring out like the tasks with Anna. So
Nice.
trying
And
to get this moving
maybe
along.
when you get that, and Austin, if I know we're in testing now, but when we get to that bi-weekly check-in time, that we might, if you have like a small recording of the designs or something, I can then link those through and be able to post them to Sid as well, so he can see them. And then depending, we could, if something's really interesting, you could come on and present to either of you kind of in the call, and we could just have you go through something real high level for him. And
Yeah.
so if you
Yep.
guys want to advocate for your own stuff, like just let me know and we'll make it more of like not just me presenting on those bi-weekly check-ins.
Yeah, I mean, right now, since that UX showcase I did, the designs haven't changed at all. But perhaps once we've solidified the tasks, I could walk through like a dry run of how it might go with
That would
somebody
be
and
cool.
do each one or just one or two of them, just to give a feel for it. But
Nice. And if we can bring this all back to our themes, that's kind of where I want to help kind of align us. So the actual tasks, if they each have a theme that they support, and the way we're using our themes to check in with people, whether they're feeling oriented and all of that, just from that high level part of our direction, that's where I want to sort of stay tuned in and make sure that everything is kind of driving through to the heart of it. I'm really excited about all of this.
me too.
Same here.
All right. Have a good Wednesday, everybody.
Yeah, y'all too.
You too.
Great talking.
Yeah.
Bye.